Welcome to Wealth, Wellness, and Womanhood. I'm Cynthia Hammonds, dentist, investor, entrepreneur, and now the host of your favorite new podcast. This show is for ambitious women just like yourself who are building extraordinary lives but don't want to settle or lose themselves in the process. Here, we are going to have real, honest conversations about building wealth, nurturing your wellness, and having a purpose-filled life. Hello, welcome to Wealth, Wellness, and Womanhood, the podcast for ambitious women. I am your host, Cynthia Uzuku Hammonds. I'm so glad to see you again. I'm so glad to have you back for this week's episode. We launched the podcast 2 weeks ago, and the support and the love and the feedback has been amazing, far beyond what I thought it would be. I'm just so happy that someone listened, and I am so grateful. And this has just been such a joy. And I am so excited that we are already on our third episode. So if you're new here, welcome. This is a safe space for ambitious women who are out here trying to build incredible lives, but don't want to burn out because it's tough out here to be a modern woman who works, but who also wants to be there for the people in her life. And so just think of this as a safe space, a wellness podcast for ambitious women. But anyway, please go ahead and leave me a review if you've been enjoying the episode so far. It's so helpful. I love hearing back from you, and I love to hear how you feel about the episode and if anything resonated with you. But all right, so getting into today's topic. Today's topic is about not being afraid to be seen trying. But before we get into all that, let's go through the journal entry of the day. The daily affirmation is be scared and do it anyways. I actually posted this on Instagram. It was part of the carousel for the first episode launch. And I got a lot of great feedback about it because I feel like people can resonate with this, especially if you are finding yourself in a position where you're wanting to do something different or put yourself out there, but all you keep thinking about is people and what they may think and their perception of you. And coming from a reformed people pleaser, I relate so heavy. And this has just been something that I have been using to push myself to do things that have scared me in the past, like starting a podcast. And I think that a lot of people can relate to it. And that's why I wanted it to be the topic of what we're going to be talking about today. What I am looking forward to this week, getting back to my routine. Oh my goodness. So I don't even know if you could still hear it kind of in my voice, but I had bronchitis and I was out for like 2 weeks. I felt so sick and I was just pushing as hard as I could just to get by. But by the weekend, it really did a number on me and everything just fell out of the wayside. Working out, meal prepping, all the things that I've really tried to be consistent at, we weren't even doing it anymore. And I really beat myself up about it. And so that's what I'm leaving behind this week is these last couple of weeks, these last few weeks, and just having grace for myself. I was just talking to my sister on the phone this morning after I went to my hot sculpt class. And I was saying, like, like I'm just so frustrated with myself because I was really on a really good trajectory of like meal prepping and like working out early in the morning and doing all the things. And then I got sick and then everything just fell by the wayside. And so now I'm slowly getting back into that routine. And she was like, girl, you were sick. That's what happens. You need to just throw the last 2 weeks away. Just completely throw those away. They didn't happen and just start afresh. And honestly, that was so freeing for me to think that way because I was like, you know what, you're right. Why am I even harping on that? We're moving on. And so that's why I'm like, I'm leaving that behind. I am leaving those last few weeks behind. They didn't happen. We're moving on. And I am very excited about that. So let's get into today's topic. I want to start off by telling y'all a story. When I was in high school, we had drill team, and I went to high school in Mesquite, which is east of Dallas, and we had drill team. And if you're familiar with drill teams in Dallas, drill teams in Texas, they have a very distinct type of uniform. It's very cowgirl-esque, very cute. And I remember when I went to my first pep rally, because mind you, I went to boarding school in Nigeria from the age of 11 to 16. So that's like roughly seventh grade, was it 7th grade? Yeah, 7th grade till my junior year of high school. So when I came to America, I started junior year of high school in American high school, and Nigerian high school and American high school are 2 totally different things. And I remember I went to my first pep rally, and mind you, before that, the only time I'd ever seen a pep rally was in movies. So I went to my first pep rally, and I remember seeing the drill team, and I was just so mesmerized. Like, their outfits were so cute to me, and the dance and all that stuff, and my little performer spirit just was like, "Ooh, I would love to do that." Now, drill team tryouts were towards the end of the year, and I was in a math class my junior year. It was like a senior math class, mostly seniors were in that class, and I I mean, you just have to imagine coming from Nigeria, you're just trying to fit in. So there were like these group of kids in my math class who were really funny, and they just were a little bit disruptive, and I sat with them. I really didn't contribute. I kind of just laughed at what they said and did. And then there was the other half of the class. I don't know if there was like some type of beef with them or whatever. I don't know. I was just in the back watching or whatever. And I remember there was this girl who was in drill team, and she didn't like the people that I was friends with. And I remember when drill team tryouts came around, and I found out that the seniors, at some point during the tryouts, the seniors were the ones to watch the tryouts and give ratings on the girls who tried out. And I wanted to try out so badly. Like, I wanted to try out so bad. I was in dance class, and I believe it was the head of the drill team, or maybe it was the head of the drill team, she taught that class. And I had a good enough relationship with her that I felt like if I had tried out, she had already seen my work ethic in my dance class, that maybe it would have been favorable for me to try out. And I literally, because I found out that the seniors were gonna be at the tryouts, and I knew that that girl was gonna be at the tryouts, I did not try out because I was just so scared that either she was gonna try to sabotage me or not. I mean, even I'm like, did she even have enough power to do that? Who knows? That she was either gonna try to sabotage me, or if I didn't try out, if I didn't make it, she was gonna make fun of me in my math class to everybody. And these were all the thoughts that I had in my head. And so that's why I didn't try out. Do you know that till this day, I still regret not trying out for the drill team my junior year of high school? This was like, what? This was when I was what, 16 years old? I'm 32 now. So let's do the math. That's 16 years. 16 years later, I'm still talking about it. That girl, she probably doesn't even remember my name. I don't even remember her name. I like, if I saw her walking down the street, I probably wouldn't even be able to recognize her. And her made up opinion in my mind is what kept me from doing that. Until this day, it's something I regret. And funny enough, that thought process has actually really helped me a lot in life because I always think back to that. I always think back to what would have happened had I just tried out. Even if I didn't make it, at least I knew I tried. Until this day, I will never know. And what's even more ironic is both of my sisters went on to try out for drill team and made it. And I'm not saying I'm a better dancer than my sisters. If they're listening to this, they're probably going to be texting me. I'm not saying that I'm a better dancer than they are, but okay, but I am. In my opinion, I am. And basically, the moral of the story is that really, it was actually something I was thinking about. And I thought that this would be a great topic because, like I said, I always think back to that moment of caring about what people think and it keeping me from what I wanted to do. And the reality is that when it comes to your life and your trajectory and your hopes and your dreams, other people's opinions do not matter, especially if they're like people who either don't like you or don't know you that well. You don't know them. You don't value any in terms of how they're living their lives or where they're going or their trajectory. You don't really know anything about them. So it's like, why do their opinions matter so much? Why do we care so much? Why do we care so much to the point where we're not willing to try and put ourselves out there, like starting the business, starting the podcast, posting on social media, asking that person out on a date, asking for a raise, interviewing for that job, applying for that school? Why does fear of being seen trying? Because it would be different if those tryouts were private and the only person you were trying out for was the teacher. That would be totally different. But because we know that there are other people who will see us trying and will be able to know whether or not it worked out for us or not, that is really what keeps a lot of people from going towards their goals and succeeding in the things that they want to do. When I was doing my research, because I love to try to give you some science-backed research, psychologists have called this the spotlight effect. Basically, this is when you are overestimating the extent that your appearance or your actions are noticed by other people. I call it like the reality TV effect, where in your mind, there's like an invisible audience who's watching your every move and secretly judging you and posting about you on social media and making fun of every little thing that you do, when in reality, nobody cares. I mean, that's just really the truth. Most of the time, nobody cares. And even if they do care, it's for a millisecond. They may talk about you for 2 seconds in their group chat. Rarely were they going to ever say it to your face. And then they move on. And then they're not thinking about it. But then you are caught in this trans of, oh my gosh, what are people going to think? What are people going to say? And the reality is none of them care because people are too busy thinking about themselves and what's going on in their lives to start wondering and perceiving every single thing that you're doing. And I feel like that should be very freeing and give you that permission to just go ahead and try it out, see what it looks like. So what? Even if it fails, who cares? The people around you don't care. And another thing that I found when I was researching on this topic was that fear of social judgment activates the same region of our brains as physical pain. So your brain is pre-programmed and wired to avoid embarrassment because it perceives it as danger. So when you feel like something's going to be embarrassment, it triggers that fight or flight, and that's why you avoid it. And I think it's important to understand that it's natural to feel that way. It's natural because our existences crave comfort. We crave things that don't make us uncomfortable. But as we know, with working out, with learning, most of the things that are good for us are uncomfortable. In order for us to grow, there's going to be a level of discomfort that we have to lean into. Now, I put together some practical ways that we can shift our focus and our thinking in order to get us to do the things that we are scared of in order to achieve our goals. The first one is you gotta reframe embarrassment as kind of like an exposure therapy. My perfect example of this is posting on social media and getting like 2 views, and one of those views being like your husband, and then the other one being your sister. So when you work on something and you put your heart and your soul into it, especially like a piece of content, and you put it on social media, and it doesn't get the response that you want, that is very discouraging. It's borderline, no, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that very first time that you're going to post something where your face is talking to camera to everybody who follows you. It is embarrassing. It's uncomfortable. It's awkward. And sometimes people may respond to it, sometimes people won't. But every time you do it, it is like an exposure therapy where you get better and better and better at not caring about the outcome. And that leads me to my second point, is that just because what you're putting out there doesn't do well or fails, quote unquote, doesn't mean that you're a failure. And you really have to separate your identity from the outcome of whatever it is that you're doing. I'll give you an example. When I was in dental school, I knew I wanted to go the general dentist route. I went in wanting to do pediatrics, and then I did my first pediatric rotation. And I said, absolutely not. Like, I love kids. I love working with kids, but I like the kids who like me. I don't like the kids who don't like coming to the dentist because it's hard enough dealing with adults who don't like coming to the dentist, but kids? Yeah, no, it wasn't for me. I'm good. Refer. The moment I see a tear, refer. So I knew I wanted to do general dentistry. I positioned myself so that I had good grades. I was president of the AGD program, which is the Academy of General Dentists, the student division. I was really familiar in the clinic where that residency would be taking place. I went there a lot. I shadowed. I did all the things. And then a series of events happened that essentially reversed all of the work that I had put in, and I didn't get in. And it was a really hard thing to go through because in dental school, your class is so small and everyone knows what everyone's, I guess, goals are and what they're going to be doing after they graduate. And for me, that was really my only option. That was the only thing that I wanted to do, which was go to that specific residency program at my school. And when I didn't get in, I was devastated, not really because my only true motivation for going into residency was I was scared to go out in the real world. I was really scared to be a full-blown dentist, and I wanted to do this one more year to just practice a little bit more before I went out into practice. And my motivation for being devastated when I look back, it was really because it was embarrassing. Like it felt embarrassing because everyone knew I was applying and I didn't get in, but my friend got in. It ended up working out great for me. I wouldn't have met my husband if I did it. I probably wouldn't be in the position that I am now with having invested in and being a part owner of my dental practice had that not happened. There's so many things that I have seen that it was very clear that that was not what God had for me. But the reality is a lot of the devastation came from the embarrassment and the embarrassment of trying really hard at something and not succeeding. But then if I think back, there were so many other people who had tried, the people that I knew about, the people that I didn't know about, who tried and they got disappointed too. And I didn't think any less of them. I didn't think any different of them. If anything, a lot of the times when we look at people who are putting themselves out there and trying things that maybe even we're too scared to do, a lot of times it's admiration that we have for them, regardless of how things work out. That's if you're a normal person. If you like watching people fail, then, you got issues. But for the most part, a lot of times people will commend and applaud people's ability to try and not succeed and then keep trying at other things or maybe even the same thing that they were trying at. And so once you start to shift that focus of just recognizing that you are not the outcome of the things that you try, then it gets a lot easier to try to separate your identity from what it is that you do. Because even on the flip side, if you're really great at something and your identity is solely based in how good you are at something or what you do for work or your accomplishments or your goals, when those things don't happen, it is very hard to adjust. And so, not finding your identity in your abilities or what you have accomplished or didn't accomplish is huge in your ability to be able to do new things and try new things and not allow embarrassment to keep you from where you're supposed to be and your goals. The third thing I want you to do to shift your focus and shift the way that you view embarrassment or putting yourself out there is to think about how your future self would feel if you didn't try. Honestly, I think about this all the time because, case in point, 16 years later, and I am still regretting not being on the drill team. I still regret it. And I'm not ashamed to say that because maybe you can learn from me. But I think about it a lot. I always think about how future me would feel if I didn't just take a chance. Before I went to dental school, I used to work as a scribe in the emergency room. One of the doctors I worked with in the emergency room told me she didn't apply to medical school till she was around 36 years old, I believe. And she said that prior to that, she had already had a career, I believe it was in finance or something like that, but she really, really wanted to be a physician. And she was talking to her dad saying that by the time I graduate from medical school, after 4 years, I'm going to be 40. And her dad was like, well, you're going to be 40 anyways. So do you want to be 40 and be a doctor or 40 and not? She was like, yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right. So she applied, she got in, she graduated, and now she's a full blown physician. And I resonated with that because my mom has always had that same philosophy. It doesn't matter how old you are when you start, just do it. My mom has had many a career shifts. She started off as a pharmacist and then later went into owning her own pharmacy. And then from there, she pivoted into import export in Nigeria. And then from there, she pivoted into real estate and real estate investing. And now she's a real estate developer. I've watched my mom transition into so many different career things and side hustles and all these things. And the reality is that if you think that you're too old or that your time has passed to do something that you want to try doing, then that is such a dead mentality. It's almost like you're giving yourself a death sentence of this is where my life stops. This is it. That's all that God has for me. And it's like, no, think about where you're going to be. If getting that degree is going to take you another 6 years, okay, in 6 years, where are you going to be? Are you okay with 6 years from now, you not having tried and done it? Or is the alternative of actually trying and going through the program and getting your degree, which one would you prefer? So you really got to think about your future self and how your future self is going to feel if you don't at least try. Sorry, I'm still a little bit hoarse from the bronchitis. Let me drink some water. And then the last thing is you should expect to be bad at something that you're just starting for the first time. This idea, because I think a lot of times we're comparing our first few chapters to someone's chapter 36. People who have been doing this and trying for years, and then they're finally seeing the success of years of trying, and you're comparing yourself to where that person's at. It just doesn't make any sense. You have to be comfortable and embrace the fact that you don't know what you're doing. But the beauty of it is that if you start off small where no one's really listening or maybe no one's really paying attention, you really are only failing in front of a few people. Take, for instance, this podcast. I think my first couple of episodes in total had 36 listeners. To me, that's a big deal. That's a huge deal. I can't even count 36 people in my life currently. I do have a lot of friends, but in terms of 36 people that I'm talking to on a regular basis throughout the week, I can't even count that many people. And the fact that that many people listen to my podcast is crazy to me. So I am so appreciative. But the reality is, even when I was listening to my podcast back, I think it was the second episode, I accidentally uploaded the wrong track. And so at the end, you can just hear me like mumble. Like, I don't even know what I was saying. It sounded like gibberish because it was the uncut, edited version. So I quickly deleted it and then edited the correct one and then reposted it again. And I was like, oh my gosh, what if people heard this? And they're probably like, what is she saying? I just was kind of spiraling. But at that point, I think only 2 people had listened to it. It's like, who cares in the grand scheme of things? Like, hopefully this podcast will grow and many people will listen to it at some point. But the reality is, when you're first starting off, not that many people are listening and not that many people care. And the people who are listening and who do care, they love you personally. So they're the least likely ones to go and blast you or make fun of you. And even if they do, they're weird for that. So the reality is that it is okay to make mistakes. And if anything, you want to make as many mistakes as possible in the earlier stages when your actions are not as consequential than later on. And then you don't even know how to handle it because you've never made a mistake before. So it's okay. Embrace it. You don't know what you're doing. Nobody knew what they were doing when they first started anything. You think the head of Apple knew what he was doing? I refuse to believe that. Who was the head of Apple again? I refuse to believe that Steve Jobs came out of the womb just knowing what he was doing. That was not the case. You make mistakes, you hire people, you consult with people who will help you get to where you want to be. But this idea that you somehow have to be a professional and know exactly what you're doing from day zero is crazy. So the next section I want to go into, it's called ambition care. And this is just like chicken soup for the ambitious soul of just things that I want you to take away and remember until we talk again about how to care for yourself and the wellness part of the ambition. And one of the things that I realize and recognize, even for myself, is that putting yourself out there is extremely terrifying. Trying new things can be really daunting, especially if you are a perfectionist, which I am sure a lot of you are. Okay, a lot of you are. this can make you really anxious and it can make you really stressed, especially if you already have a high stress or demanding life, job, whatever the case may be. And stress raises your cortisol, it raises inflammation, all the things. This is my healthcare hat coming on. And I want for this to kind of reduce that fight or flight feeling when it comes to putting yourself out there and trying something new, but also give you practical steps that will help to regulate your nervous system so that you're not freaking out. And some of those things are like praying, meditating, journaling, surrounding yourself with people who are like minded, who are putting themselves out there, who are in your industry, both at your level and people who have gone before you and who have done what you're doing right now. Because those are the people who can help you to see that, hey, that mistake that you made is not that big of a deal. Relax, calm down. I say this because even my business partner that I work with, she's been in dentistry longer than I have. And it is so meaningful to me when I can come to her with a problem and she's like, oh, I've seen that happen before. And here's how I was able to solve the situation. It is so refreshing and it just calms your spirit down because sometimes, especially if you have such a high standard for yourself, you are constantly nitpicking at yourself and stressing yourself out because things aren't perfect and done exactly the way that you want them to. And then someone else comes and just says, hey, you're actually doing a great job. Like it is not, this thing that you're worried about is not as big of a deal as you are making it out to be. And it's okay. And you feel like this sense of just calmness and relief. And you really need to surround yourself with people like that and honestly touch grass because at the end of the day, it's not that deep. It's not that serious. It's going to be okay. And if you haven't heard that from somebody, hear it from me and try to apply it to your situation. It's gonna be okay. So I asked a question on my Instagram stories, and I want to pose this question out to you. Is there something that you aren't doing because you're afraid that someone else could be watching? Whether it is starting to create content or applying for a program or asking for a raise or starting a new side hustle or starting a new business, what are you afraid of? Who are you afraid of? Whose opinion are you afraid of? And that's keeping you from doing what you want to do. I want you to really think about that and share it on the Substack so that way we can create a community of encouragement for one another. When I said I was going to start this podcast, I told a very few number of people that I was going to start this podcast, and every single one of them was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Like, that totally makes sense for you to start a podcast. And I'm like, is it because I talk a lot? Like, do I talk too much? Are y'all trying to say something to me? But it's the truth. And it was their encouragement that really pushed me to do it. So I really want you to vocalize out loud thing that you're wanting to do that you are too scared to do because you're afraid of who's watching. And just watch the people in your life really encourage and motivate you to do that thing. So definitely send me a DM, write it in the comments. I want to see it. And I want us to really encourage one another. If there was only one thing that I wanted you to take away from this episode, it's recognizing that you are not everyone's cup of tea, and that is totally okay. But recognize as well that you are an inspiration to someone, and your voice does matter. There are people who, the moment you decide that you're not going to be afraid and you're going to put yourself out there and you're going to go after that thing that God has put in your spirit deep down in your heart, there are people who are going to see that and it's going to give them permission to do the exact same. And so don't be afraid to be seen trying because at the end of the day, you not trying and you not putting that thing that the world needs, think about how much of a disservice you're doing not only to yourself, but to the people who are coming after you and the people who are in your life right now. And I don't mean to get deep, but I really want you to think about that. But anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. I love hearing from you again. So please shoot me a DM, shoot me a message. I am at sin_Hammonds on every platform. I love hearing from you. Thank you so much again. And I can't wait to talk to you in 2 weeks here on Wealth, Wellness, and Womanhood, the podcast. Bye.